Hi, I'm Nikita and welcome to this Yoga for Beginners class brought to you by Gallagher for Mental Health Awareness Week. Today we are focusing on the lower back, a hotspot for tension for so many of us. We will also look at lengthening into the backs of the legs because it's well known that tightness in the hamstrings can often create tightness and tension in the lower back as well because of how the psoas muscle connects from the lumbar spine towards the tops of the legs. Don't forget that even though we're focusing on the physical body, there are so many benefits for the non-physical aspects of our being. So while we are stretching and strengthening into our physical bodies, we are releasing tension emotionally and mentally as well. For this class, all we will need are some books, roughly 4 books, or if you have yoga bricks, even better. But if not, I have 4 books here. They're quite thick, hardback books. A towel for cushioning if the ground is a little bit too hard on the knees, and a strap of some sort. I'm using a sarong, but a scarf or a tie or a belt will do nicely if you don't have a yoga strap. So let me just move those to the side. We are going to begin lying down on our backs with the knees bent and the feet flat on the ground. Lovely. And let the palms face up, let the backs of the hands rest on the ground. Send the tailbone forward so that you lengthen into the lumbar spine. Take a moment here just noticing how the ground supports you. And we'll begin with some pelvic tilts. Take an inhalation. As you exhale, bring your navel down towards the spine, sending the tailbone forward so that you lengthen into the lower back. The pelvis tilts forwards, the lumbar spine makes contact with the ground. As you inhale, let the belly inflate, lift the navel towards the sky, the pelvis tilts backwards, and the lumbar spine arches more exaggeratedly and lifts away from the ground. Again, exhale, the tailbone presses forwards, the tummy moves down towards the back, lumbar spine makes contact with the mat. Inhale, the arch in our spine and the lumbar spine becomes more exaggerated. A few more times. Exhale, tailbone reaches forwards towards the heels. Inhale, tummy lifts towards the sky as we arch the spine. Exhale, lengthen the lumbar spine. Inhale, come to neutral. We're going to bring both knees in towards the chest. Move one at a time. Bring the hands onto the knees or connect the wrists in front of the knees and start to very gently rock side to side. And it's tempting to rock quite quickly. Can you move quite slowly so that you can feel every part of the mid to lower back making contact with the ground? That's it. And you can hug the thighs in a little bit closer if there's space to do that. Good work. And now we've made some space in the lower back. We bring the feet down to the ground. Take the arms out at shoulder height, and with an exhale, release both knees out towards the right hand side. Try and keep the spacing between your feet, the hip width spacing between your feet. If you find that this is a little bit pinchy at the lower back, bring the knees together, both knees together, and lift them so that they're in line with the left hip. You might find that that's a deeper twist in the spine, but it might be a bit more comfortable in your lower back. Every one of us is different, and your experience of this posture will be unique. Look for what feels right to you. For me, it feels nicer to have my feet hip width distance apart. We'll take another round of breath here, a deep inhalation, a long exhalation. And as we breathe in, come back up to center. Exhale, opposite way. And again, you might find that having the feet hip width distance apart is not right for your body, in which case bring the right knee on top of the left knee and line the knees up with the right hip. If it helps, you can bring your left hand to the top of your right thigh to help weigh that leg down. If your right shoulder lifts away from the ground, you can just bring the fingertips to the ground just above the head so that that eases the depth, the intensity of the twist. Last round of breath here. And then as we inhale, we'll come back up to center. Roll out towards one side and use your top hand to press yourself up carefully. And we'll ease around to all fours. Here we're going to move through cat and cow. Inhale, arching the spine, perhaps with the knuckles on the ground if the wrists don't like palms being flat. Exhale, round the spine. Twice more. Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Slow as the breath. Exhale, round. Inhale to neutralize, come back to a neutral tabletop shape, and then lifting to downward facing dog. You might spend a moment just treading into the feet. So as one knee bends, the other heel can ease closer to the ground. So we open into the calf muscle, the back of the knee and the back of the legs to release any tightness at the back of the legs that could be causing tension in the lower spine, the lumbar spine. So wriggling and opening up as you need to find a little bit more comfort and space in downward facing dog. And then when you're ready, either we walk the feet to the hands or we walk the hands back towards the feet to find our forward fold. The knees are soft, the feet are hip width distance apart, toes facing forwards. And then very slowly on an inhale, we are going to roll ourselves up, kind of like a rag doll, so that one vertebrae of the spine will stack on top of the next until eventually your head stacks on top of your neck. Then you come to standing, exhale. Okay, we're going to move down into a squat now. So we need two bricks that are pretty much the same height. This one's just a little bit higher than that one. So let's use these two. And we step the heels onto the bricks, roughly hip width distance apart. Take the hands together in prayer. And as we exhale, we bend the knees and sit down into the hips. And this is a very strong lengthening sensation in the lower back, especially if you now feel comfortable enough to move the bricks away and bring your heels flat on the ground. If you're not sure, or if there's tightness at the hips or the ankles, keep the bricks there. And just spend a moment here, lengthening into the lumbar spine. And you can even send your breath down to the lower back. A deep inhalation. See if you can create an expansion right down at the base of the lungs towards the lower back. Exhale. One more round of breath like this. And then we'll move forwards to all fours carefully. And sit back on the heels as you move your props away from the mat so that we can come to sitting with the legs extended out in front of you. We're going to move into a little bit of a forward fold to lengthen into the backs of the legs, because remember, the more space we can make at the back of the legs, the more comfortable the lumbar spine can be. I would recommend moving the flesh from the sit bones wide here as you broaden into the foundation. What that means is that we want to feel the sit bones more cleanly plugging into the mat or the ground underneath you. Oftentimes, if there's tightness at the back of the legs or tightness in the back body, it's not easy to sit with the shoulders stacked on top of the hips, in which case I would recommend sitting on one of your books. A little bit of height underneath the hips helps you to tilt the pelvis forwards more comfortably. If that's still really not comfortable, use your towel underneath the knees so that your knees can bend comfortably, and that will allow the lumbar spine to feel more free. Now, the strap or the sarong or the towel or the belt or the tie, we wrap around the balls of the toes. And then we walk the hands along the strap until the shoulders sit neatly on top of the hips. Can you see there that I'm pushing forward through the heels and spreading the toes? And I'm going to lift up into the chest, and even just lifting the chest arches the spine and pulls the sit bones back. That means the hamstring connectors are drawn back as well, which will find a lot more length for you in the lumbar spine. So you might find that just lifting into the chest is enough, or it might be that you have space now to lean forwards. If you lean forwards, make sure it happens just from a hinge at the front of the hips, rather than rounding into the spine. If you round the spine, the sensation quite quickly disappears and we find a lengthening at the upper back. And in fact, we're perpetuating the slumping posture that we have at a desk. If you keep the spine long and the heart lifted, then we ease in with a very spacious and beneficial structured posture that will lengthen all the way from the ankles towards the hips and the lower back towards the upper back. So think about taking your heart towards the toes rather than bringing your forehead towards the thighs. Heart towards the toes, only as far as feels comfortably available. Ideally, we'd stay here for about a minute, but let's just take a few breaths here. And if you feel any negativity of the lower back, any difficult sensations, any pain, dial back. It shouldn't hurt. It should feel satisfying, a deep stretch, but no pain. All right, let's use this inhale to lift back up to center, and we'll lose the strap now. Bring that down to the side. We want our bricks to be either side of us or on one side so that they're easy to access once we're on the ground. Come to lying down on your back, feet flat on the ground, and then we are going to tilt the pelvis forward so that we lengthen the lumbar spine, lift into the hips, and pop our bricks. Let's use 3 underneath the hips. So this won't be a particularly high back bend, it's just a supported lift of the pelvis, which allows us to feel much more clearly the weight of the hips. And then the invitation here is to allow the weight of the hips to sink into the buttocks and the weight of the shoulder girdle, which will feel more extreme now, to sink into the ground, into the mat or the floor or the carpet underneath you. And you might be able to feel more of a softening at the lower abdomen, at the front hip flexors, releasing at the lower back, the mid back, even across the chest and the rib cage. And once you feel like you've been able to relax and release, and your hips are feeling quite heavy, your thighs are feeling quite released, quite soft, and we're going to slide away one of the books. Notice the difference in how that feels at the thighs, the hips, the back, now that the hips are not as high. More rounded breath here. Maybe you bring the knees in to meet each other. One more rounded breath here. And carefully sliding away another brick. And the lower the hips go, the more you might feel that you want to bring the knees in towards each other to help broaden at the lower back and to really release through the thighs. After this next round of breath, we'll lift the hips one last time to remove that final book. And now allowing the lumbar spine and the back of the hips, the sacrum, to come down onto the ground. You might find that there is a lot more space and length at the lumbar spine than there was in the beginning of the class. And we can spend another few minutes here concentrating on our body's ability to soften and let go here. So much of why yoga works so powerfully is because of the relaxation response, because it allows us to become so deeply released and relaxed. The way that we breathe, the way that we are so aware of the body allows us to assist the body in letting go and releasing the tension that we're holding in the physical body and in the mind. This is when we're able to discharge that tension. Softening the jaw, softening the back of the neck. And feel free to pause this video here so you can spend a bit longer working into that deep relaxation, that deep sense of letting go of muscular engagement. When you are ready to move, we will very carefully roll out towards the right hand side and press the left hand into the ground in front of you. Carefully guide yourself up to sitting. Fluttering the eyes open, we close the practice here. Thank you.